I want to welcome you all to the Clemson MBA Innovative Leadership Speaker Series. This one is extra special for me personally, just because I always love inviting our Clemson MBA alumni back to speak and share their knowledge of what they've done over the years and share some good nuggets of wisdom with you. So you're really in for a treat today. I'm so thrilled to introduce you to Nicole Andrews. Nicole is a mom, a wife, a former corporate executive, an online entrepreneur. She formerly served as the Vice President of Human Resources for an architecture firm. And she's also known as the Career Disruptor and created Nicole Andrews International in 2019. She offers career coaching, organizational consulting, online courses, and other events focused on inspiring ambitious women who feel overlooked in the workplace and to disrupt traditional thinking about careers so people can reach their full potential. Nicole was a 2021 40 Under 40 honoree of GSA Business and a 20 Under 40 honoree of the Anderson Area Chamber of Commerce. She was recently recognized as a top 100 corporate executive in America under 50 by DiversityMBA Magazine. Nicole holds a certified Master's of Career Services credential from the National Career Development Association and 2 masters, not just 1, but 2. I'm sure she's going to talk about her story here. At the same time, earned 2 master's degrees from Clemson University, 1 in human resources development, and of course, 1 as an MBA. She's also a Clemson undergrad in business management with a minor in psychology. Nicole, we are thrilled to have you join us today, and we can't wait to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamie. Thanks everyone for joining. And I see some familiar faces. I'm not going to call anyone out, but my heart is pounding. I'm sending a lot of love your way. There are some clients on, former clients on, and former colleagues on. And so I'm just super excited today. But we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who know me, I like to add a little bit of silly, a little bit of seriousness. And Jamie knows I'm quite disappointed that we're not there in person. I really thought this was going to be live in person so I could jump around, move around, but I can't. So we'll make the most of virtual, and I think you'll have a lot of fun today. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly. Can everyone see it? Thumbs up. Awesome. So I'm going to share this really quickly so you can see where we're going. So I like to, whenever I share or present, to give you something that you can walk out with and take with as well, take with you and use and apply in your own career, your own company, your life. And I created the story framework, and you'll see me walk through it. So we hear a lot about storytelling, but how do you storytell? How do you do it well? So I wanted to create this framework, and I did this a few years ago, really starting with the S in story, which are the situations that you've been in. Every single one of you on this call are way smarter than just me, right? Collectively, our wisdom is amazing. And so every single one of you have situations that you've been in that are unique to you and only you. So you'll see me weave that in as I talk about my story and also the future of work and careers today. The other part of the story framework is your T. So trials and triumphs that you've been through that are unique again to you. Opportunities is the third area that I'll walk through. And opportunities are things that you've experienced in your life, your career. Your fourth area for R is your reason for being. Anyone who knows me knows I'm big on purpose. And so we'll talk a little bit about what's your reason for being? What is your purpose? And then the fifth piece is you. And so let's stop share and hop back on. So I'm going to share here today and start off actually with a quick little story. And I have like some little cards here because I want to keep us on track. I have 45 minutes to share, and then we're going to open it up for questions. I've been asked to open it up. So I want to ask you before we dive in today to think about one takeaway. I'm going to throw a lot at you. So I'm going to pack a lot into these 45 minutes. But think about the one thing that you can walk away with and take and apply in your career, your company, or your life in general today. Not all of the things that I'll be sharing, but just one thing. And I'm going to share a quick story. So I was in my finance class in the MBA program, which was I actually almost quit the MBA program because of the finance class. So I'm just kidding. It's my personal thing. That's not my strength, right? I'm not accounting. I'm not finance. But I remember going through the finance class and really, trying to figure things out. And at the end of that class, I had a job notification pop up on my phone, and it was for an HR role at a CPA firm, a certified public accounting firm. And I was like, this sounds interesting. I want to apply. So I applied for the role. I ended up having a phone interview. The phone interview was supposed to be 15 minutes. It turned into an hour because the conversation was so great. It was a really good conversation on both sides. And then by the time I got to the in-person interview, I knew that this was the company and the role for me. I knew that. I felt that. And so I was super nervous when I got to the interview again early on in my career. And they asked me, I'd spoken with the COO, I'd spoken with one of the regional managing partners, and they asked me to tell them about myself in the interview. And the first thing that I said was, I love drinking pickle juice with ice in it. So again, those who know me know I love pickles and pickle juice. Always have stock full of pickle juice and pickles in my fridge. And I just blurted it out. So I want you to sit back and take this journey with me, because we paused for what seemed like minutes. There was nothing. It was really seconds. No one said anything in the interview. And I literally was in a room. They were sitting across from me. The door was to the right. And I'm like, how can I get out of here? I've just ruined it for myself. And then all of a sudden they started laughing. They burst into laughter. I burst into laughter. I'm like, did they hate it? Did they love it? What's going on? And they said, one of the managers said, I drink pickle juice too. I love pickle juice too. And I will tell you, 3 things that I thought about was, this is the place for me. I belong here. I belong at this company. And that's what I want you all to know today, is that you belong here in this moment. We're all here in this space, in this moment, at this time together for a reason today. So I felt like I belonged there. They saw my silliness. They saw my seriousness. And I don't know if they would not have laughed, I don't think that would have been the place for me, right? I think that would have been a sign that maybe they wouldn't get me. Maybe I wouldn't fit in quite well here. So anyway, that's the story, right? I want to open that up, because if you don't remember anything else I said today, you'll remember that I love pickle juice through that story. So again, that's how you weave in story using the story framework. So I'm going to kick off with situations. You can type it into chat. It's going to be engaging. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. So I want you to utilize this chat today. Type in, what are 3 things that makes you different? Someone be bold. Kick us off. What are 3 things that makes you different? What are some situations, again, that story framework, situations that you've been in that makes you different? And while people are talking, oh, I hate pickles. Janet, love Janet. I hate pickles. I know that about Janet. I actually know Janet. Janet hates pickles. I can wiggle my ears. Amber, oh, I would love to see that. Can you go off? No, don't do that. They probably don't embarrass our people who are joining. So I can wiggle my ears. I love that, Amber. Well, I'm going to dive into some things that I feel makes me different. Decisions is one of them, right? So, Joe, you're sharing me on the screen. This is so awkward. No, I'm just kidding. Everyone can see Joe. I'm like, why am I seeing myself twice? But I will say this, situations that I've been in. So Jamie probably remembers this from many years ago. I actually, when I decided to do both the MBA and MHRD program, I was deciding whether I wanted to do 1 master's, do 2. I didn't want to just go to school to get a master's just to have one. I really wanted to be intentional. And so at that time, I ended up going with the MBA and saying, hey, I know I want to do the MBA because I love business. My undergrad is in business. I connect to the business side of things. But then I thought about the MHRD because I love the people side of the business. And the master's in HR development at Clemson, specifically for me, and the MBA combined, were a way for me to, again, create differentiators for myself. Not the only way to differentiate, but one way, because I really love the fact that I had organizational development in MHRD. I had instructional design. I had performance improvement. And it's really about maximizing the human potential, whereas the MBA is about the whole process, the whole system, right? So that combined for me, I had to make the decision, and I decided to go and get 2 masters while working full time. I do not recommend that. Just like I do not recommend saying that you drink pickle juice in an interview, unless you're comfortable with not getting that job potentially. But again, that's something that I did. Again, that was a situation that was unique to me. But this is how it worked for me in terms of my career situations, in terms of being in sales. I started out in sales, and I will tell you, having to learn how to handle rejection, having to learn how to overcome objections really helped me early on in my career. Sales has probably been one of the most meaningful things that I've done, because when I moved into HR at the company that I was working with at the time, the recruiter would always send people to me at the job fair. She's like, "Hey, Nicole's done sales. We're hiring for sales. Talk to Nicole." And so I say that to you because if you're sitting here today, think about your collective experience. If you're sitting here and you're like, "I really want to transition my career. I want to do something different." You can take those skills and transfer that into something totally different. And I did that, right? I moved from sales into HR, two different things, but I knew that I wanted to help others be better. I knew that I wanted to help others develop. And so I moved into the HR side. The third thing that I'll share before we move to the T are, I really want you to think about this entrepreneurial mindset. So we're talking a little bit about future of work here, career development. We'll talk a little bit about inclusion. But when you think about situations that I've been an employee. So that really taught me how to master my own work and get things done, right? We all start off typically as employees. Then moving into an executive level role, the employee role is more about your individual work, what you're doing, the tactical getting things done. As an executive, I had to work through a team and get things done through a team, as well as think about the strategy and where we were headed in the future and the vision of that team and that function. But as an entrepreneur, I'm now full-time in my business. As an entrepreneur, I have to put on my whole systems thinking. So again, from the MBA standpoint, I'm thinking about all areas. I'm the sales and marketing person. I'm the customer service person. I'm the operator and operations and administrative person. I am the accounting and finance person. I wear all of the hats. So as an entrepreneur, you have to think strategically and tactically. My point and key takeaway before we move on to the T is that I want you to focus on your difference as a company. I want you to focus on your difference as a career and really shine that and really think entrepreneurially, not just about your work and not just about your strategy, but about both. How do you get things done, but how do you think big picture? And how do you keep that entrepreneurial mindset? No matter if you're working in a company or not, you need to think about the whole system and how your work impacts that company, right? So I'm going to move us to the T now. And I want to ask you a question about your biggest challenge. So you do not have to get personal, or if it's bringing up things that you don't want to share, feel free not to, but I want you to type into the chat, what's your biggest struggle in your career or life right now? What's your biggest struggle in your career or life right now? Work-life balance, Madison. Thank you. Yes, that's a huge struggle. Balancing school, work, and ventures. Yes, time management. Time. Deciding what type of job or pathway you would choose with a degree in business. Confidence that you're qualified for other opportunities. Christine, great. Amber, thanks for sharing that. Decisions, right? Feeling disconnected from continuing learning. Rosanna, that would be interesting to dig into. So thank you. Keep sharing in the chat and keep posting, because this is helpful for everyone to see what is on everyone's mind. And I'm going to share one of my trials. So again, as we're looking at the story framework, trials and triumphs, I had a manager at one point in my career who, to be honest with you, I felt was micromanaging my work. And I don't do well with micromanagement. And so it was one of those situations where I had to either have a conversation or just ignore it and just keep plugging through. And I decided to have a conversation. And there's a point, again, you know, that is a point to the story, right? But I had a conversation and just said, hey, I feel like you're micromanaging. Here are some examples of things that I feel that are affecting my ability to perform at my best, because I feel like everything that I'm doing is being micromanaged. And she said, well, I don't know. Can you share some more examples? I shared the examples. And she said, well, I'll take a look. I'll think about that. But here's why I'm doing that. I'm new to my role. She said, I am a little bit nervous. I want the team to perform well. And it's not really about you. It's just that I want us to do a good job. I don't want my team to fail. And that trial, I will tell you, I'm going to talk about inclusion here because that helped me open up my perspective. There were two things that as I was thinking about that situation in preparation for this, I literally had to open myself up to hear her perspective as to why she was doing and approaching the work the way she was and what I thought was micromanaging. But she also said, yeah, I can see how you are viewing it that way. And I will try to back off a little bit. And her telling me her perspective, I mean, I had to also lean into the fact that I probably had some biases, and I did not know that until many years later. She was much younger than I was. She was also different race, ethnicity. She was also had less years of experience than I had. So when I think about that experience in my career, I look back and I'm like, gosh, maybe there were some biases creeping in that I didn't even realize I had, right? And I'm talking about vulnerable things that we have to sometimes think about. The third piece for the T before we pivot to the O is I share that story because I've known her now for a decade. She and I have the most beautiful relationship. She did not hold a grudge because I shared a hard thing with her as a leader. If you are a leader on this call today, or if you're a student and you're going to be leading a team one day, right? Or if you're currently a professional in the workplace, listen to your people. She did not hold a grudge against me. She didn't hold it against me. We have the most beautiful relationship. And she was the one who told me to advocate for my first manager position. She was the one who challenged me and said, Nicole, I see this in you. I want you to advocate to get this first step, this first managerial role. And I did it. But it was all because we were able to have uncomfortable conversations and stand in conflict. And one of the things that I see today is that, how many of you raise your hands? I feel like one of our biggest challenges, if you agree, you can raise your hands, is that we're not using conflict as an opportunity to grow. We have difficulty standing in conflict these days. I see several hands raised. Conflict is your biggest opportunity as a company to grow. And I'll share some examples with you. So it's only going to increase from here because I have a few scenarios to share with you today, but that is your biggest opportunity. And so when I think about that, my triumph is really understanding that inclusion is your ticket to innovation. When people say that DEI doesn't have a business case or DEI really doesn't matter, inclusivity, me hearing her perspective, her hearing my perspective, we developed so many different things during our work together. We developed a stay interview process before it was popular and was able to retain 90% of our talent in that organization. We ran a performance management process and developed something that was able to be rolled out into the entire organization because, again, we learned how to work through our conflict. And conflict can be turned into creativity if we only are comfortable to have the tough conversations, right? So I see some head shaking. Thank you, Bill. Yes, Bill is with me. Thank you. Thank you. So I share that because I do think that is a big opportunity for the future of work. If we keep avoiding conflict, we're going to have issues. We got to be able to stand in it and turn it into healthy conflict that then transforms into creativity. Okay, now, get ready because I want you to talk. Christine, thank you for sharing imposter syndrome. Oh, that's so sweet, Christine. Do your thing, eat your salad. That's so sweet. I wish my child would bring me a salad, but I don't know what would be in it if she did that at 5. That's so sweet. I love it. Well, I want you all to think about this. I want you to type into the chat. I'm going to give you 2 truths and a lie. And I want you to type 1, 2, or 3 in the chat based on which one you think is the lie. So number 1 is 37.5% of the US has a 4-year degree or higher. 37.5% of the US has a 4-year degree or higher. Number 2, 20% of the US has a master's degree. 20% have a master's degree. And then the third one is less than 2% have a doctoral degree. So again, if you would type in the one that you think is the untruth, the lie, right? 1, 2, or 3. Seeing a lot of 2s. A lot of twos, some ones, few threes, mostly twos, some ones. Okay, so just to recap, 37.5% of the US has a 4-year college degree is actually true, 37.5%. Less than 2% have a doctoral degree is true, but 20% having a master's degree is not true. So 2, if you typed in 2, you got it right. There's no prizes, unfortunately, because we're not in person, Jamie. No. But honestly, when you think about the numbers, so if you look up the numbers, it's about a little bit over 6% have a master's degree. So if you're in this program, if you're in the MBA program, or if you have a master's, there's only 6% of you that have that. So that is a huge advantage. So when we talk about opportunities in the story framework, this is really about opportunities and things that you've experienced. And for me, I know my education has been my biggest opportunity, but I will also say, number 2, that education is not my differentiator alone. It's not. Like, I've never looked at my education, even though I know it gives me an advantage. I need the experience and the education and the skill sets to really differentiate myself, right? It's not just the education. That's one piece of it. So if I look at all of these things, when I look at hiring, we know that a lot of companies right now are struggling with hiring. So if you're only looking at that 37.5% that have 4-year college degrees and you're saying that's a must, if it's not a requirement, if it's a requirement, then you absolutely need that, right, in your company. But if it's not a requirement, how are you opening yourself up to people with different abilities of different ages who may want to return to the workplace? How are you opening yourself up to people who may not have degrees, but have the skills? So again, for those of you who are in companies on this call, how are you pivoting and changing and looking at opportunities to really change the way that you recruit and how you recruit, unless you're in a professional field? Like, I've worked with architects. I have some on the call today, some accountants, attorneys, advertising professionals. Like, all of these individuals are unique. They're specialized, like engineers, your doctors. They require a degree, but there are some skills and some fields that don't. So how are we opening it up and using that as an opportunity to recruit differently? Before we go to the R, I'm going to share a story with you about Netflix and then a few other companies. So how many of you know what's happening with Netflix? We're going to have Christine. Oh, Christine, you're eating your salad. I don't want to call you out. You all didn't know that you were going to be called out to interact, right? To share. But can anyone tell me what's going on with Netflix? You can type it in the chat if you don't feel comfortable unmuting. Does anyone know what's happening with Netflix right now? They're losing business. Yes, Christine. They haven't innovated. Ooh, yes.
They want people to stop sharing.
They want people to stop sharing. Yeah, their passwords. Absolutely. So people are unsubscribing. They may be starting ads, Jonathan. Yes. Thank you, Jennifer, for that. Yes, they want people to stop sharing passwords, which they feel like that's impacting their market share. All right. Well, Netflix is losing subscribers. Stocks are down. And also, unfortunately, they've had to lay off a few employees. And so when I think about Netflix as an example, how many of you remember Blockbuster? It's one of my favorite examples. There is actually one Blockbuster still in existence, and I think it's in Alaska, if I'm not mistaken. So if anyone's laughing like, Blockbuster, what is that? Then hey, you're Gen Z probably. So we're gonna keep moving. Look up Blockbuster if you don't remember going into a store and picking up videos and having late fees like I always did. I mean, again, Blockbuster is, again, at their peak, they were in the billions. When we think about Netflix, I think about how are they going to pivot, right? So my thoughts in terms of Netflix is their subscriber count could be down because we know, right, unfortunately, we're dealing with a lot of things in the world, and certain parts of the country right now may not be subscribing to Netflix, or certain parts of the world may not be subscribing. But Netflix was an early adopter of streaming, so they're going to lose some market share because other streaming services are coming into play. But I'm so interested to see what they're going to do. Jonathan mentioned ad services. I don't have Netflix, so don't laugh at me, please. I do not have Netflix. I know I'm missing out. I just never, again, it's not personal. It's just that I never subscribed. And so I'm interested to see what they're going to do though, because they've never had ads. And if I did subscribe, that would be something that I would want to see, right? I'd like that they're ad free, whereas other platforms are not ad free. But they are looking at adding a lower price tier for ad-free. But that may not be the only thing that saves them. They are also looking at movie theater releases. I heard that recently, that they're almost turning into a cable television network, which they were the antithesis of that before. They did not want it. They wanted to go against traditional cable, but now they're thinking about having major movie releases and then premiering those only on Netflix. If you're not following them, they're an interesting business case study. Jamie's smiling because that's my MBA hat working. I'm so interested to see what they're going to do. A lot of new streaming services are taking popular shows away from Netflix. Madison said, yes, like The Office. So we will see what they will do. But I want to share with you a story of hope. And even as you're thinking about your own career, these are things that you can think about in your own company, your career, as to how you can pivot. So how many of you remember Nintendo and the Duck Game and all of the other things, Super Mario Brothers, Donkey Kong, all of these things, right? So can anyone share in the chat how Nintendo started? Does anyone know? You cannot Google this. Do not Google it. I see some Google fingers, Google eyes. You cannot Google this. So Nintendo, in the early 1900s, they've been around for a very long time. They started out as a Japanese, like a large card selling company in Japan. They sold cards. Then Nintendo pivoted. They pivoted to become a taxi service. So the Nintendo taxi service. Then I won't tell you the other thing. You'll have to Google the other thing that they did. I will not share everything that they did, but they did pivot again. And then they pivoted into a vacuum cleaner service business, a vacuum cleaner business. And then in the 1980s, they pivoted for one last time into the gaming industry. And now they're worth tens of billions of dollars, right? Tens of billions of dollars. I see some faces. People are doubting. I always say validate and fact check, validate and fact check. But I was so interested in that story because it's a story of hope, right? For people and companies and individuals within their career who are saying, I don't really know what to do. There's always a pivot. If Nintendo can pivot 5 or 6 times, we'll see what Netflix does, right? The other story that I want to tell you about is YouTube. Does anyone know YouTube's original intent, what they started out as? No Google fingers. Okay. YouTube started out as a video dating site. So when YouTube first launched in 2005, they launched on Valentine's Day. And that was intentional, right? From a strategy standpoint, they were a video dating site. Christine, you're shaking your head. Do you know about this story? Oh, you don't? So yes, they started out as a video dating site for people to upload their video profiles and their videos for dating. And they started paying people because no one was using it for dating. No one was using it. But what they started to uncover was that people were using it. They were using it for videos to talk about their days, to talk about their week, to talk about something they learned, to share ideas. They were using the platform. They were even using the platform to talk about things that were happening at that time in the Super Bowl, things that had happened just in media in general, and to talk and reflect on their thoughts around it. People were using it. So YouTube realized that they had to pivot to become what they called at that time, broadcast yourself channel. The broadcast of you, broadcasting yourself channel. And obviously they pivoted several times in terms of what they do and who they focus on in terms of creators, but they pivoted. And so my story around this, and again, it's just really to say the key takeaway from this is that we have to be flexible and we have to be adaptable. As we continue on with the future of work, I think the people who win, and there's actually a quote around this, I don't know the exact quote, but the people who are going to win in the future of work in companies as you're innovating are the people who can adapt the fastest. Because we know that the pace of change is only accelerating. So the people who can adapt the fastest are the ones who are going to win. And so I think with Netflix, again, I go back to them, we'll see what they'll do. Blockbuster had a chance to buy Netflix and they did not buy it. So again, Netflix could choose to purchase another company and go into a different space versus having to build something organic, but we'll see. So I'm going to pause there for any thoughts in the chat. What are you thinking? How are you feeling before we move to the R in the story framework? And we're almost at question time too, in about 10 minutes. Any surprises with that? Has anyone looked up Nintendo and seen their services? No. Well, that's okay. I'm sure that people are like, she's not telling. No, it's true. I promise you it's true. So we're going to go into the R. And again, when I think about the reason, the R in my story framework is really about your reason for being. Fuji versus Kodak, also interesting. Christine, yes, that's another example. It was Kodak and how they did not pivot. They had the digital market on lock and they did not pivot in time. They did not adapt quickly enough. So thank you for sharing that. So the reason for being, when you think about the R in the story framework, it's really about what is your purpose? What is your reason for being? So I'm going to ask you all to think about your favorite book and drop that in the chat for us. What is your favorite book? Could be something you read a long time ago. I see Jennifer pulling a book to the side now. What is your favorite book? Hi, Christy. No one has a favorite book. I'm disappointed. No, I'm just kidding. Any favorite books? I thought I really envisioned us having a book list here that people could walk away with, and it's not working out that way, right? So think about The Hobbit. Oh, The Stranger. They're coming in hot. Love it. Love it. Love it. So again, keep typing your books in. Outsiders. Oh, I love it. These sounds like mystery or sci-fi. Or White Teeth, Daring to Lead, Brene Brown. 3 Simple Things. Start with Why and Dare to Lead. A lot of Brene Browners here. Love Brene Brown. The Giving Tree. Oh, that one seems interesting, Janet. The Giving Tree. We have to talk to you and ask you about that one. Well, I love that. Keep adding them to the chat. I have a lot of favorite books. I see Christy has like a study back in her background. My study is my favorite place because I love books and I always have, even as a child. And one of my favorite ones is The Alchemist. Has anyone heard of The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho? Janet has. So again, The Alchemist is really about, I don't want to give it away, but this individual going on their own journey in their life and trying to figure out how to live the life that they truly want, how to uncover their personal legend, as they call it in the book. And I'm going to read this quote to you because it's one of my favorite quotes. And Laura said, yes, my daughter and I read it together. Yes, The Alchemist is super, super powerful. It's really a powerful book. And I think about this quote that says, when you want something, all the universe conspires to help you achieve it. When you want something, all of the universe conspires to help you achieve it. It's the possibility of having a dream come true that makes life interesting. So when I think about that quote and you think about your favorite book, it probably stirs your soul in some way. And I'm going to tell you this story of DEI because when I think about your reason for being, I would not be here if I did not do the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't think I would have been in my entrepreneurship journey, or at least not right now. I wouldn't be focusing on the areas that I focus on unless I would have done that work. But I'm going to tell you how I got started. Even though I had the sales, background, and then I pivoted into HR, and I really loved the people. HR was my thing. I knew I wanted to become a VP of HR, CHRO. But I had this little U-turn because someone, our chief people officer at that time, asked me and asked my boss if I would be interested in heading up not just our HR programs, but specifically also bringing in DEI and heading that up and creating a strategy around it. And I told them no. So when people hear that, sometimes they're like, whoa, like I said, no, that's not something I'm interested. That's not something I'm interested in. It's not on my path. They said, well, you are so good at it. That's just because I value inclusion, right? That's inherent in my spirit and in my soul. But I didn't feel like I needed a title of inclusion to do the work. And so when I went to my mentor, luckily I asked somebody else for their opinion. And she told me this. She said, Nicole, are you chasing a title or are you chasing purpose? Are you chasing a title or are you chasing your purpose? And it just hit. I mean, I can still remember sitting in her seat or sitting in her office that day and just thinking about it and saying, wow, I never thought about it that way. I don't think I'm chasing a title, but in actuality, I am. This is my path. I'm on a linear path. I'm clear about that path. And now someone's asking me to venture off that path. I don't feel comfortable with that. So if you're sitting here in your career right now and you know in your soul something else is speaking to you, or you're an MBA student and you're like, gosh, I know what I want to do, but I just don't feel comfortable using my voice or doing that work, then I want to share with you that story, because I actually had to go back to my boss and I told her what my mentor said. And she said, smart mentor. And I told her I was open to it. I said, I'm open to the possibility of doing the work if you all think that I would be the best fit for that work. And I will tell you that that's some of the most life-giving and meaningful work that I've ever done in my career. It made me a better HR person. It made me a better mom. It made me a better leader. It made me a better employee, professional, right? All of these, a better friend, when I think about inclusion and what it's done for me. And so I blend those things before we move to why in the way that I do the career disruption work that I do. And I've trademarked the career disruptor because really, I believe that you have to disrupt the status quo on purpose in your career, in your company. And you'll hear me talk a lot about that as we have this conversation today, because I really think the disruption is no longer optional. If companies are sitting on the status quo in terms of flexibility, if companies are sitting and trying to do things the way that they were pre-pandemic, if companies don't want to be involved in social and all of these different areas, then I really think that we're going to miss the mark on some things there, right? So I feel that me being a career disruptor is also me being a career futurist. I think about, even with my clients, the world very differently and helping them develop a strategy, not just to get their dream job today, but to really think about the future and who they want to be, really tapping into that vision and purpose. And then the same thing with companies who want to help develop better leaders, because they are the gateway to someone's day-to-day experiences and how someone will progress. Again, my leader that I had at the time is the reason I advocated for myself to have that manager position. So we need leaders who are great and who are bridging the gap for our people and helping them maximize and reach their full potential in the workplaces that we're in. So the key takeaway from this particular area, before we move to the last one and open it up, is I want you to think about your bigger purpose. Find your bigger purpose in your company. Find your bigger purpose in your career. If you are not sure about that, I want you to think about the books that are on your shelves right now that could hit. Like, I had a lot of career books. I was the one who was in career services at Clemson, even in undergrad. I'm the only person that's hopping over to the career center, and everyone else, like after class, I would stay behind just to be in the career center and learn about careers. And so me being a career coach and an organizational consultant today doesn't surprise a lot of people that really know me, because they're like, oh my gosh, Nicole, you've been about careers this whole time and helping people find their path. So I want you to think about, what is that thing that you know you're meant to do to serve others? How are your books and the other things that you read and what you're doing hinting to that and a clue to what your path could truly be? So as we bring this home with the why, I want you to think about the why in you? What is your superpower? And I have something in my office that says, it's a picture, it's an art piece that says, no one is you, and that is your superpower. I feel like we're missing the mark in our organizations, in our careers, in everything that we're doing, because we're forcing people into boxes. I have to agree with you to like you. I have to be like you. I have to accept what you think for you to embrace me. I have to act just like you and behave like you, or have your same values and belief systems. No, I feel like we're trying to box people in and create many versions of ourselves in the world. And I think that would be quite boring. I don't want another person like me, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I need someone to challenge me. I need someone to help me think bigger, right? I want someone who is different from me to help me think about things that I've never thought about before. So when you think about you, you are your superpower. And if you're not using that in your work and in your career, and even as you're in your company, as you're recruiting and positioning yourselves, then you're missing the mark. So the three parts that I'll talk about here to bring us home are covering. One of the things that I share in vulnerability is that when I first started out my career many years ago, I was wearing sweater dresses, y'all, and I don't even like sweater dresses. And I was wearing them with leggings. And I just felt like I needed to be that person. I'm nothing against sweater dresses. I see people are like, what's wrong with sweater dresses? There's nothing wrong with sweater dresses. I'm just saying that, I have I digress. I'm going to move us forward. But what I'm saying is that I covered parts of who I was just to try to fit into a box of what I think everybody else did, how everybody else was dressing, what everyone else was doing. But I knew it in my soul because I wasn't connected to that. And when I pulled back from that was when my career really started to advance, when I really started to show up as Nicole and not anybody else, and started to voice my opinions and share my thoughts. And so when I think about that, covering parts of who you are every day can be so exhausting. It's just exhausting. So I challenge you, even if you walk away with nothing else, I want you to think about something that you can do for your own mental well-being. And if that's just not covering who you are and just showing up as who you are, I want you to do that. The second thing is burnout is real. And I see burnout as not having an end in sight to the work that's right in front of you. That's how I define burnout, is that you have so much to do and no end in sight that it's creating anxiety. And it's that constant recurring anxiety. And so when I think about that, rest and recover, even when we exercise, we're supposed to rest and recover. Every 7 to 10 days of exercise, you're supposed to rest and recover for 48 to 72 hours. But we have to rest and recover in our work. Sometimes we just have to shut it off. And when I was in the MBA program and the MHRD while working full-time, 2 different programs, there were some weekends and I would map it out. I'm like, I'm shutting it off. I'm going on a date night with my husband. I'm going to connect with family this weekend and doing Sunday dinner. I'm doing something else. I had to shut it off. And if you're working and you've been plugging through without a day off, just take a day off and just lounge around, like do nothing that day. Rest and recovery is an activity and it needs to be intentional, especially as we're in May and Mental Health Month. And then the last thing is going back to protecting your mental health. There are some things I don't do. I try to stay away from the news. There are times when it pops up on my phone or my husband will be watching something and it'll catch my attention, but I really don't watch the news. That doesn't mean that you all don't have to watch the news. I feel like if I need to know something, I usually know, right? It comes up on this. You see my little MBA, like my Clemson on my phone, but it comes up on my phone. So if I need to know it, I'll know it. But for me, for my mental, I have to separate and step away from news sometimes. For you, it could be a social media detox. We're so busy comparing ourselves to everyone else's lives. What are they doing? How are they working? How much money are they making? It gets exhausting. So sometimes it's a social media detox. Sometimes it's meditation. Sometimes it's early morning prayer if you're a spiritual, being. So a resource for this. Thank you, Christine. Christine shared a resource called Free Period Press. So there are ways to detox and separate from all of the things that are coming. But what I will tell you as the key takeaway before we wrap up are take care of you. Take care of yourself. So if I had a challenge for you, it's what are you going to do to take time out for yourself? within the next 24 hours? What is something that you can do? Because that, if you don't take care of you, nothing else that we talked about today matters. Nothing else matters. So I'm going to share this and then we'll open it up. But if you're looking at this, you can take a screenshot of this framework. I basically just walked us through. You can use this for pitches with clients. You can use this through with presentations, but think about the situations that you've been in that are unique to you, the trials and triumphs that you've had, opportunities that you've experienced in your career and life, your purpose and reason for being, and let that shine through when you're communicating, even in your day-to-day with your boss or with your colleague, your team, colleagues and team members. And then just remember to be you and take care of you. The other thing that I want you to think about are, again, the key takeaways from today. Focus on being different, not better. Somebody else can come in and be a better digital marketing specialist. Somebody else can come in and even be a better, probably organizational consultant or career coach. Like, there are tons of people who do what we do, but we are the only ones. Like, nobody else is Nicole Andrews. Nobody else is Jennifer Dura. Nobody else is Jamie Patterson. So I want you to be you, because nobody can be you better than you, right? So inclusion is the second piece. Inclusion is your ticket to innovation, especially when you can transform conflict into creativity. Be flexible and adaptable. Find your bigger purpose and take care of yourself. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Find me at thenicoleandrews.com or nicole@thenicoleandrews.com. And I want you to think about this quote before we open it up. And it's from Steve Jobs. The people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who actually do. And I'm crazy enough, I'm going to tell you on May 20th, to think that my little spirit, my little soul in this world can do something to change organizations for the better and the people that I interact and impact with for the better. And collectively, every single one of you on this call can do the same. We all have the power to change the world. One person, one step, one conversation at a time. So I thank you for your time and spending it with me. I do not take that lightly. I think Clemson today, the MBA program, and Jeremy and Jamie and the marketing, like Devin, I believe it is, others who have been a part of this journey of getting us here today. I couldn't be more honored to be your speaker today, and thank you. So we're going to open it up.
Thank you, Nicole. That was so beautiful. The way you tied it all together in the end, just amazing. We're going to open it up for questions. So you can either type it in the chat or please feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead.
Oh, Elizabeth has a great question in the chat, and you all can unmute too if you have questions too, or you can type them in the chat. But Elizabeth says, I love what you shared about conflict being an opportunity for growth. In professional conflicts, can you share phrases or language you can use to navigate difficult conversations? And how do we lean in a productive and respectful way? So Elizabeth, that's such a deep and profound question. There's so many different directions I can go with this, but in terms of navigating difficult conversation, I think I always tell people statements shut down, questions open up. Statements shut down. Think about any time you've just said something and it shut the whole conversation down versus you said, hey, can you help me understand? Can you tell me more? So I could give a lot of techniques, and we all, like, someone else can type into the chat their thoughts. But Elizabeth, what I would say is anytime you're in conflict with someone, how can you do several things? One is think about a question that you can ask to open up dialogue about why the tension is there. And I've done this before. I've actually, again, just the same thing that I did with the manager when I said, hey, I feel like you're micromanaging me. And that opened up a ton of conversations for me to understand her perspective and she to understand mine. But I've also had conversations with leaders before where I had one conversation before where I felt like there was some tension, and I shared that, and it didn't go so well. Like, I could tell, like, they said, oh no, there's no tension. And it's like, there was even more tension after I asked the question. So I know there was tension there. So I always say, ask questions. How can you ask questions and open it up? And so even when you're thinking about that conflict, how can I put myself in that person's shoes is another thing, and argue their point of view. A lot of people don't do that. Like, I've had to do that with people. I'm like, gosh, I know I can be debating. I have strong convictions about things at times. And so sometimes I've had to put myself in other people's shoes and argue their point of view when I'm in conflict, right? How can I argue their point of view about how we're being challenged with each other right now and see it from their perspective, even before I speak with them. I hope that helps, Elizabeth. And then Joe has a book, Difficult Conversations. And thank you, Joe. There's Difficult Conversations. There's also Radical Candor. Radical Candor is a great book if you want one on how to have open and honest conversations that still uplift and uphold the integrity of the other person. And then there's also Crucial Conversations. So what else? You can hit me with some hard questions. Elizabeth, thanks for getting started. That was a good one.
All right, last chance. Any questions? I know a lot of what you might want to ask is probably personal just due to the context of the conversation. So Nicole did share how to get in touch with her. So I hope that you will connect with her on LinkedIn or reach out to her after today. And she's going to put it out. Look at that, just like that. Nicole, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time with us today and giving us so much to think about today. So it's always wonderful to see you, and we love having you as a part of the MBA program. So thank you so much for everything today.
Thank you all. Happy Friday.
Bye, everybody. Take care.